NFTs are digital assets with unique properties. They can be anything from virtual items like CryptoKitties to real-world assets like real estate. Some examples of NFT digital assets include land titles, art, collectibles, memorabilia, and sports cards, to name just a few. NFTs are also part of the blockchain network. While any blockchain can develop a support standard, most NFTs are part of Ethereum. The blockchain validates every NFT transfer, rather than any one central institution. Like Bitcoin, Cardano is a cryptocurrency, but its blockchain also supports these unique assets. One other quality is worth noting: NFTs are unique, cryptographic tokens stored in virtual cryptocurrency wallets. They are divisible, transferable, and consumable. Why we should care about NFTs. What's the future of collecting NFTs? Is Cardano a good option to publish NFTs?
NFTs started to be a thing, right? And I was very confused when I first saw NFTs. And the question that I had was, why would anyone pay for a link to a JPEG, right? Because an NFT is like a receipt. It's not even a JPEG, right? Or a monkey picture. It's a receipt that says you bought a monkey picture, right? And it includes some metadata that maybe points to some IPFS link that says that's mine. And so I took it as a design problem. Like, how can I make this statement untrue? The statement, a link to a JPEG. And so the thing that I came up with is like, what if we put some kind of information or instructions on chain that were themselves able to produce the output, an image. And so Unsigned Algorithms was this kind of NFT project I came up with.
Now is time for our sponsor.
The easiest and fastest way to buy cryptos in Ecuador is through our Bitcoin ATM, located in the beautiful city of Cuenca, in one of the most known bars of the city called La Cigale. You can buy Bitcoins and other cryptos with cash directly to your wallet without sharing personal information. Don't worry about your privacy. Our Bitcoin ATM make it easy for you to get cryptos. Our ATM is located between Honorato Vasquez 780 and Luis Cordero Streets. You can also find more information at batm.eurekadevelopers.com.
So welcome everyone to our episode number 50. This is the second episode I'm recording in English, and I have a special guest today. We're going to talk about NFTs. This is our second episode about NFTs. And I have with me Alexander Nomad. He's an architect, he's a digital nomad, he's a USA expat, he's a Bitcoiner and NFT artist. So he's quite a character. So I'm really happy to have you here in the podcast. So welcome, Alexander. How are you doing?
Good, fine, thanks. Like as you mentioned, just moved to Portugal, and I'm loving it. It's an amazing country and lovely weather. So thank you for having me here. I apologize, everyone, for not speaking Spanish. I think it's really probably the only downside on moving. But I should have. What I was trying to say is, like, Spanish is such a useful language, right? If you want to be like a global citizen, I feel, to move around and be able to talk with people wherever you go. So
yeah, so I met Alexander I think a month ago or 2 months ago. I went for a weekend to Lisbon. I went to see a rock concert there. But that weekend I took advantage of one of the meetups I found in Lisbon about cryptos. It was not only focused on Bitcoin, it was focused on a lot of cryptos and NFTs. So I met you and I found you really an interesting person to be in the podcast. And as I said, this is the second episode we are recording in English. So I didn't want to miss the chance to have you here and to share with everyone who's listening this podcast in English and soon in Spanish as well. So you can share all your experience in this field. So Alexander, thank you for joining us and for sharing a little bit of your time. So please tell us what your origins, your technical background. So who is Alexander Nomad?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, my background originally was in architecture, which is like buildings, not like internet architecture or something like that, IT architecture. And I first heard about Bitcoin, I think in like 2011, 2012, when like the pizza was being sold. And the funny thing was I built like 9 or 10 high-powered workstations for my friends because we're all architects in grad school, and we need to make like 3D renders, right? So like really high powered CPUs and GPUs and lots of RAM. But the saddest thing is these were all using NVIDIA GPUs, which have CUDA on them to do some kind of like, a lot of these rendering softwares require CUDA. And at the time, AMD was so much better. You know, like you could mine thousands of Bitcoin a month with the AMD GPU instead of hundreds. And so it was like, oh, there's no point in doing that. You know, what's the point of mining hundreds of Bitcoin? So I didn't start mining until I think 2012, 2013 or 14, finally, when Bitcoin was going to $100. And it was like probably the biggest mistake or second biggest mistake of my life. But I've been around the space for a while and quite interested in how everything has played out the past decade or so.
Yes, so one of the things I found fascinating is you move from the original architecture, like the old school architecture, now to be into the crypto space with NFTs and all that stuff. So that I found it really cool. And I've been reading a lot about expat moving from the US to other places, especially Europe, and Portugal is one of the places where a lot of them are moving. And when I met you, finally, I met someone in person that you can tell all the stories. So please tell us a little bit how it's been moving from the US to Portugal, and why you decide to move to Europe, why you decide to quit your US passport, and the pros and cons of being living there.
So I was born in the States to a Japanese father and an American mother. And funny, like when I was growing up, I got called a Mexican a lot. And not that I think there's anything wrong with being Mexican, but like I would always joke to these, you know, racist people, like, if you're going to be racist to me, please use the correct racist term. You know, I'm not a spick, I'm a Jap, or something like this, right? Really stupid. And I never really felt like I belonged in the States for whatever reason. And so I was lucky enough to have a Japanese passport already, which is a decent passport to have. And so when I could, I basically gave up my U.S. citizenship. I haven't lived in the U.S. for, I don't know, 8 or 9 years now. I was living in Mumbai, India for 3 years. And then I lived in Japan for 3 years. And then I was in Mauritius for a little bit, and now just most recently came to Portugal. So it's been a long time, and it was just like, it was quite funny, you know, in a lot of these countries, you just have less rights as a U.S. citizen. Like, you can't invest in mutual funds because, you know, the IRS is wants to know what you're holding, and then all these mutual funds basically don't want to do reporting on, like, if a U.S. citizen is they're taking money from a U.S. citizen, they have to do so much more disclosures. So it's just really just a downside. And the U.S. is the only country, I think the USA and Eritrea are the only countries in the world that tax the global income of their citizens, even if they're not living in the country. So I just had enough with it. And the only requirement was you have to show that you're a citizen of another country. You go to an embassy, and you perform an oath with a vow. It was quite funny because the embassy officer had very clearly never done this before. You know, it's not so common to be giving up U.S. citizenship, and he was like, it's quite a long process to go through, in terms of, like, you have to call, you have to do an interview, you have to do another interview. They have to make sure that, like, you're not being coerced by some, like, gangsters or something like that. But finally, I was able to get out, and I feel like escape. So
you did all that in the embassy of Japan, no?
Yeah. So the funny thing was, when I was doing this in Tokyo, they had like a 6-month waiting list or 8-month waiting list, something like that, for the first appointment. And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to go to like Taiwan or Korea or something to do this. And then I was my wife, who's much smarter than me, said, like, why don't you try another embassy in Japan? So I called up Sapporo, which is in the north, Osaka, Fukuoka, all the other like major cities that had consulates or embassies. It was quite funny. Like 2 out of 4 of them were like, no, you have to go to Tokyo. One of them, like, saying like, that's the rule, that's the policy. And the other one said, okay, no problem, come up here. So there's really no kind of real system or regulation around it. right? Two told me it wasn't possible. One told me it was okay. And so I went up there and I did it. I flew in, at like 8 a.m. I ran over to the embassy. I performed this oath, and then I ran back out and flew back home. But it was quite a kind of surreal day. Felt kind of like a wedding almost, or a funeral, depending on how you look at it, right? Like it was an interesting thing to happen.
Yeah, and what I read on internet is most of the people who decide to quit their U.S. passport and move to Portugal or some other places, it's because some of them, they are into crypto and the government is chasing them for the taxes and all of that. So is that what is
a lot of people who get wealthy, like that Facebook co-founder, or I guess crypto people, but basically there's a lot of obligations you have as a U.S. citizen that if you're not living in the States, like, why would you go through with that? It just doesn't make sense, right? Like, as a Japanese citizen, I can live anywhere in the world, and if I'm not living in Japan and I don't have like a business in Japan, I don't have to file taxes there. I don't have to do this stuff, right? So given that, like, it's basically doubling your kind of overhead if you're a U.S. citizen. Like, I have to file taxes of the country I'm living in, and I have to file taxes in the States. It was just kind of troublesome. And, I try to like streamline my life as much as possible. I threw away all my socks, and I bought like 20 pairs of the same sock so that I never have to match socks in my life again. You get what I'm saying? Right? Like, I just have a drawer and it's all the same sock. And so I just have to grab 2 socks, and that's like, it saves me time. And so, same thing, like inverse. I don't want to have to file 2 sets of taxes every year. And just one is enough. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I don't remember. For how long have you been living in Portugal right now?
I only came here in April. I was before that I was in Mauritius for a little bit less than a year, but I love it here. It's just great and really friendly people.
So can you tell me a little bit, I don't know, the pros and cons of being living there? Why did you decide to move to Portugal?
Oh, I mean, probably most obvious is capital gains on crypto is not a thing in Portugal, right? And I had a kind of significant crypto, less significant now, but enough that I still, felt it was beneficial kind of portfolio. I'd say partly that you could say that climate and just lifestyle. I told you I had lived in India for 3 years. And when I was in India as a salaried employee, I was paying 38% taxes or something on like all my income over like $3,000 because the levels are so much lower in India. And I just didn't know where this money was going, right? Like, I didn't care about supporting the Indian military, and it's not like there were really roads to use, or for example, like I had to subscribe to an ambulance. I paid a monthly fee up to a private company so that if I had an emergency, an ambulance would come to my house, right? And so I kind of, after that experience, I kind of thought, maybe I don't mind paying 40 to 50% taxes living, somewhere in Scandinavia, if my kids don't have to go to a private school, or how do you say, like I can count on there being, police to come if there's an emergency or something like that. But what was kind of unique is that I feel like I'm able to like build the basket of services that I want access to, and Portugal has good enough infrastructure that it's like, is it Amsterdam or is it Japan? Maybe not, but like it's totally livable and totally friendly, and the climate is just so much better. I love all the sun.
Yeah, you're right. I love as well Portugal for the weather, the people, the food is delicious, and it's really cheap compared to other places in
cost
Europe,
of living.
so
Yeah,
I believe,
exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say that in Spain I've been living here for the last 5 years, and the amount of taxes that I'm paying every single month is around the 30%. So it's a lot, as you said.
Yeah,
that would be really great that you can decide where these taxes are going, because some of the time you don't know where are they going, and you don't have all the benefits of this 30%, or as you were paying nearly 40% I know, as you mentioned, in Scandinavia they pay around 40, but you can see the taxes because they have
where it's going,
social
right?
security, you have education, so that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I paid a lot of money in India for private schools for my kids and stuff like that, right? And so it was like I had to pay all this private stuff to cover my life, and I had to pay the taxes. At least I should be getting some value for it, right? And so that was kind of the motivation. Also, I think the other thing, it's not really about taxes, but just, in crypto, I realized this maybe last month. I had never really talked to anyone in real life about crypto because my mother's family are kind of like evangelical Christians who, try to go to other countries and convert people. And I always felt kind of weird about that, right? Like, how come you can be so confident that you know the answers, that you should tell other people, follow me, I know what's going on. That felt like really confident, and I didn't like that. And so from my perspective, I don't like to proselytize or like preach to other people about what they should do. So even though I've been in crypto a long time, I had like my crypto friends online, and I had my real life friends. And I kind of decided I want to be around people who have similar interests to me and want to like build things in crypto. And so even more than the taxes, I think like just being able to go to the block, like where I met you, right? Yeah. And that's one of 4 crypto meetups every week in Lisbon, right? And being able to like talk about what's going on and figure out what other people are doing, like that to me felt like such a valuable kind of networking opportunity to just, plug into this space and really figure out what I want to do in crypto over the next couple of years. Especially with COVID, and everyone being online so much for the past, couple of years, it felt like, okay, let's go someplace where we can physically all kind of be close to each other. And I felt like other people were making that same decision. So as a side effect of the taxes, right, because taxes are good here for crypto, a lot of people are coming. And it's what I'm trying to say is it's more about that draw that was interesting to me, that because other people are going here, there's like a kind of critical mass or some kind of tipping point that feels like is happening in Lisbon and in Portugal more generally.
Yeah, I agree with you. What we met in the blog is like co-working there in Lisbon, and I found it really cool that they had like a terrace, like at the bar at the back of the co-working, where we were able to pay in crypto. Do you remember I paid some beers with Bitcoin Lightning? You were waiting there on the queue to pay in cash, so you paid the first round and I paid the second round. So it was really cool because you were able to pay not only Bitcoin, they had a lot of other currencies that were accepted.
It was really funny because I went back last week and I only had my debit card. I didn't have any cash, and I had to walk to like an ATM 3 blocks away because I didn't have like a crypto wallet with me that I could use in a currency that they accepted, right? And so I felt like really like a second-class citizen. Like I was sure they were laughing at me. This loser comes to the crypto meetup and tries to pay with his Visa debit card, right? Like not gonna make it. So I kind of learned there.
Yeah, it was really cool that event. And when one of the things that I want to show everyone here now on video, let me see if I can share my screen, is this. Can you see my screen right now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I want to talk about this because you've been mining Bitcoin, or you were mining Bitcoin in 2013. So when crypto was not in the mouth of everyone. So can you tell us a little bit about this? Because these are some of the features that how you started mining Bitcoin at that time, no?
Yeah, so technically at this time I was mining Litecoin and trading it into Bitcoin because, I think Bitcoin had already moved on to, I think, FPGAs and ASICs at this point. I think FPGAs were coming online. But what was the point? Yeah, so my hedge was, this was 2013. This was like a year or two after I had first heard about Bitcoin. But what I was doing here was like, I put $5,000 into GPUs basically, with the idea that even if Bitcoin tanked or crypto tanked, I would be able to at least sell the GPUs for money, right? To other kind of gamers or something like that. So this really messy desk that you're seeing, right? This was, you don't have to do this at all for mining, but because I had like 12 of these GPUs, I put 4 of them in this like quad crossfire configuration and water cooled them, you know, just to see like what it would be like. It was kind of insane, right? These 4 copper water blocks and this kind of like parallel distributor on the top to like share water between them. And it was probably like, you know, at the time, the most extreme computer I had ever built. But I had 12 of these GPUs, and I was in a graduate family student housing at a U of M Ann Arbor. So I had free electricity. And
That's
so
great. That's great.
it was just like, yeah. And so I was mining Bitcoin or Litecoin and instantly trading into Bitcoin, for free, except for the cost of the hardware. And I think by the end, maybe I had like 20 to 25 Bitcoin or so. It was early days, and that was after like a couple months of mining or so. And yeah, these were the R9 290s. They were like the top of the line AMD GPUs. Yeah, I had 12 of these, right? And that's when
4
like
gigabytes.
Yeah. At the time, these were, I think, somewhere between $300 and $500 each, and those were like expensive GPUs. Like nowadays, I think an expensive GPU is, you know, like $1,000 or $2,000. So it's quite funny how things have changed. But
because right now with 4 gigabytes, I think you are not even able to mine Ethereum.
Yeah.
Can mine
this was huge back then. Right? Like difficulty rates being what they were, and these were top of the line GPUs. These were like, you know, I have a RTX 3090 in my workstation now. It's like the same peak, you know, top of the line GPU. So I think in some of the other footage you can see that like the crappy little racks that I built for holding like a couple of these GPUs at once. And for cooling, it was in the middle of winter.
And
it was like
made of wood,
yeah. It's just like 1x2 pine, right? And like you can see the foam motherboard. Like when you buy a motherboard, it comes in some protective packaging. I just had that right sitting on the rack, and then the PSU in the background. This was before you could buy like aluminium, you know, like mining rigs and stuff like that, because there just wasn't an industry like there is now around mining. So these were all, I didn't take photos once it was all done. So you see all like the really messy things. You can see a Christmas tree in the background. This must have been like November, December of 2013. But yeah, it was fun. But it was kind of a headache, right?
The price of Bitcoin at that time.
Yeah, I think it was around $100. It was going in that peak. It went from like 100 to 1,000 or so. I'm not sure exactly, but that seems like
2013. Well, I don't have data for all.
Yeah, so right. So it was. I believe it was going through $100. From like 70 to 100.
September 2014, 300. Yeah.
And I think we might have got to 1,000 and then crashed back down to like 200 or something like that, or 100, right? But like it was when if we look here, if we start at the upper left, you see 3 GPUs kind of back to back to back with no air able to get to them.
Yeah, in the middle.
So that was like a little test rig I had in the rack in front of the photo. There's 3 more. You can see 1, 2, 3 on the wood. In that little black box in the back right, that was an M-ATX case, so that had 2 GPUs in it. And then you can see a little bit of the copper. Yeah, that one had 2 GPUs in it, right? And then you can see a little bit of the copper water block at the very right of the photo. So that had another 4. So that's 2 plus 3 plus 3. What was that? 6, 8. I had plus the 4, and that was 12 GPUs for mining Bitcoin or Litecoin, I think, and then like I said, instantly trading to Bitcoin, whatever Litecoin was being mined. So, but it was kind of
it's doing that right now.
Yeah, it's kind of a pain, right? Like if something crashes, you have to reboot it, and again, this was like nowadays you have all this monitoring software that is kind of like automate some of that for you, right? You can like automatically restart if your hash rate drops and stuff like that. But this was very early, and so it was much more like manual system administration to reboot these things and monitor them, get you try. I think I had like a SMS alert system set up so that if I wasn't, if a system wasn't kind of checking in with some monitoring server I had someplace, I would get an SMS message, hey, check. That was, but it's still, I could be down for an hour or two, not mining because of that. So that was not good.
Yeah, you're right. It's the first time I see this like water cooling for graphic cards. I saw this in Bitcoin miners, but not in graphic cards. But as I said back then,
this was made for gamers. Right, like this for gamers to overclock and get like an extra 5 to 15%, frames per second. It was really stupid. It's a big waste of money, but I wanted to see, because I had so many of them, what it was like.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, actually, right now you can use some other software. For example, HiveOS is one of them that you have all the alerts and everything that ready. You reboot when something goes wrong. You have Telegram alerts, and you can mix all the cards. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, but in 2013 you didn't have that, so you have to do.
It was so. What I ended up doing is I ended up selling all this hardware for like, I think 30-40% more than I paid for it, because I was day trading the Bitcoin, that I had earned, and I was earning 3 to 5% a day, and then I calculated if I had $5,000, what this mining hardware was earning me, in the Litecoin that it was mining every day, compared to if I had sold the hardware and just put that into my capital and day traded it. I could make more trading the Bitcoin or the crypto that I was I could acquire with this capital, and because everyone wanted to mine, I could sell the hardware for more than I paid for it, which is quite funny to me, right? It's not often that you can sell computer hardware for more than you paid for it, a long time after you bought it. So that was nice.
But actually, that's what happened. Well, not right now, because Ethereum mining is going to end soon. But I remember the last 2 years with my colleague, with the one who we started this podcast with. For example, we were finding some graphic cards. I don't remember, some of them in 400 euros, for example.
Yeah.
And then after a few months, 600.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when I got my first job, I didn't want to be dealing with this. I tried holding for the mining and the day trading at the same time, and it was just like, I can't concentrate on my job, right? And so it was like I sold all this off and just held the crypto, and that was that. But I think it was a good experience.
Yeah, as you said, really cool experience. So. I remember when we met, you mentioned that you became into the NFTs with your own design. So that's why you created on-signet algorithm. I saw that now. So can you tell me a little bit about your NFTs that I think are based on Cardano, if I'm not wrong?
Yeah. So part of the reason I sold all that hardware as a segue was like FPGAs and ASICs were coming online, right? And I kind of was like, I was very interested in blockchain and Bitcoin for decentralization, right? Like having a global network. And so what seemed to be happening was like, if you knew the right people, you could get access to ASICs, like the better ASICs before anyone else, and you could set up your operations to be more efficient. And that seemed like really unegalitarian to me, right? So I kind of dropped out of crypto for a while. And I got back into it, I think, in 2019 or so. So I missed out from 2015 to 2019, the like ICO and, Ethereum, DeFi, all that big boom, because I was waiting for proof of stake to come online, which seemed like a more kind of fair way, so that it's not just about, do I have access to cheap electricity or do I have access to ASICs, right? Like if you have money, you can participate in the network directly. So that's kind of what happened there. And then, as you mentioned, NFTs started to be a thing, right? And I was very confused when I first saw NFTs, and the question that I had was, why would anyone pay for a link to a JPEG, right? Because an NFT is like a receipt, It's not even a JPEG, right? Or a monkey picture. It's a receipt that says you bought a monkey picture, right? And it includes some metadata that maybe points to some IPFS link that says that's mine. And so I took it as a design problem. Like, how can I make this statement untrue? The statement, a link to a JPEG. And so the thing that I came up with is like, what if we put some kind of information or instructions on chain that were themselves able to produce the output, an image. And so Unsigned Algorithms was this kind of NFT project I came up with, which was like, let's combine red, green, and blue, which are like the basic parts of any image, in like every way possible, following some kind of rules that I came up with, and store all that code and instruction on chain, so that even if image servers go down and that kind of thing, you can still recreate your image anytime. And that way, I kind of say, like, rather than being a receipt to a JPEG, at least it's like a blueprint or sheet music, right? That, like, if you understand how to execute or perform that thing, you're able to recreate it. And it was pretty popular. It took off on Cardano. I sold the entire collection of 31,000 NFTs out. And I was able to quit my job as an AI/ML developer thanks to this art collection. It was a really kind of bizarre last couple of years.
So you sold more than 30,000 NFTs on Cardano.
Yeah, 31,119.
31,000.
Yeah, yeah. And since then, the collection has had around, I don't know, like 3 million ADA worth of trading volume on the secondary market.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that's probably, depending on when that was traded, $4 to 5 million US dollars or so of secondary, peer-to-peer sales from someone to another person.
Yeah, so that's crazy. More than 31,000 NFTs for one collection. And do you remember the price when you sold them?
Yeah, so the reason there's 31,000 is like, it's a kind of combinatorial study over like all the ways to combine these things. And so like, I didn't want to randomly select 10,000 of them, because that felt wrong. Like, this is the question that I was asking, like, what does it look like to combine these colors under these rules in every way possible? And so, if you know what iter tools is in Python, right? Like, there's the total set is 50 million, but I basically made like some kind of like a map reduce filter logic to filter out, certain combinations that were repetitive, so that it arrived at a more kind of essential set. And so the first 10,000 I sold 3 for 50 ADA. The next 10,000 was 2 for 50 ADA, and the last 10,000 was 1 for 50 ADA. And that was also kind of like a designed thing, because like, I think usually in NFT collections, if you have 10,000, the first 1,000 are like 10 ADA, the next 1,000 are 20 ADA, and then the next 1,000 30 ADA, and the last 1,000 will be like 100 ADA. But from my perspective, that seemed like a bad idea, because the people at the end are paying 10 times more than the people at the beginning. And what was the other part of that? Like, it gets very painful, right? If you bought early on, you're probably not going to buy later on, right? Because like, the pain has gone up so much. Like, if you're shopping on Amazon, right? Like, you get some pleasure anytime you buy something, like, oh, that thing is coming to me, right? And the pain you experience is like the price that you have to pay, that your credit card or your debit card, shows that kind of obligation. And so what I did is I decreased the pleasure every time as the phases went on, from 3 to 2 to 1, but I kept the price constant, right? So it was always 50 ADA. And I felt that was kind of like a psychological hack to, encourage people who participated early to, of course, the cost per piece was going up, but psychologically, like, they were acclimated to sending me 50 ADA for something, right? And so as the sale went on, they got less and less, but their pain didn't go up, that in absolute terms. it was only ever 50. So, and I think at the time ADA was around $1 or so if you're trying to do the math for conversions. But
right now it's around like 40-50 cents, I think, right now.
Yeah, it's fallen from like $3 all the way to 50. So I'm down bad, but it's still okay.
And why did you decide to launch your collection on Cardano? I don't know, Ethereum.
Yeah, so I dropped out of crypto in like 2014 or so, right? And at the time, even back then on like Bitcoin Talk and stuff, like people were talking about proof of stake, like it was going to come out next year, right? But of course, it took a lot longer than that for a proof of stake network to come out. And I've always been interested in functional programming, mostly to build a blockchain in. Because if you know what a blockchain is, right, it's like an immutable distributed ledger, right? Purely functional programming, like there's no mutation or no state. So it just seemed to me like, you know, it was a smart thing to build a blockchain in a kind of paradigm where state wasn't really a thing. And it would just be more kind of secure and robust. And so every couple of years I was kind of checking in to see what's going on in blockchains. And I think in 2018 or so, I started to try to learn Haskell, you know, which is a famous kind of purely functional, very abstract mathematical language. And while I was doing that, you know, I would be on like Reddit, Haskell subreddit, and I think in 2019 or so, I kept seeing Cardano pop up, and I was like, "What is this?" You know. And I started to do more research in it. And first I was very sad because I was literally learning Haskell so that someday I could write a blockchain in it. But I found someone else was already doing that, right? So after I was sad, I was like, oh, wait, what are they doing? And I found that, you know, oh, there's like 100 PhDs working on this who are much smarter than me. Maybe this isn't a bad thing. And so instead of like building out a blockchain in Haskell, I could kind of jump onto like what would you do if there was a blockchain written this way? So I became very interested. And of course, like I was mentioning, proof of stake is a thing. So it's not about like, do I live in a country with cheap power and cold air? Anyone can participate across the world in setting up a pool or a validator. And so I started doing that, and it's been fun. I've enjoyed it a lot. So that's why Cardano.
I'm not sure if you saw the latest news about Cardano. I think they were planning to release a new version this month.
Yeah, the hard fork combinator. So I mean, these are called hard fork combinator events. Like they happen like the last significant one was bringing smart contracts to Cardano, and I think that happened around like September of last year. But I mean, these things always get delayed because, you know, it's software. And when you're, even me, like making like a collection of art on a blockchain, it's very kind of nervous, you know, like you can't edit it after you've put it out there, right? So I was double checking and triple checking, you know, am I doing this right? And so I think what happened is, you know, like I think it went live on like a private testnet, but it's not on a public testnet yet. So I think they've kind of frozen development, but they haven't put it through like, you know, testing. And so I believe right now it's being tested, and probably end of July is like the new target. But I don't think this is a significant issue. It's bringing a lot of interesting features to the network, but it's not as big a deal as, like, you know, for a long time Cardano was a meme because it didn't have smart contracts and all you could do was send and stake it. But that's no longer really the case. These are kind of like incremental improvements and optimizations that allow for more throughput to happen. So I'm not terribly worried about it.
Yeah, so I read one of the features that this new update is going to bring is it will be able to add more users, more developers, more applications in the future, even without losing any of the speed of the performance of the network. And also I saw that it's going to improve the scalability, improving the performance for more than 3 million unique wallets that right now I'm holding.
Yeah.
Data.
So right now, if you want to do a smart contract on Cardano, you have to like submit the code for it every time, right? But what's happening, I think for me, one of the major changes in this is like you can submit that code one time, and then the next time you want to use it, you just reference it. It's kind of like a pointer, right? That code over there is what I want to execute. And that means that every block, you don't have to resubmit the 16 KB of code, and a block can only be 80 KB, right? I think right now on Cardano, roughly that size. So before you could only fit like four smart contracts within a single block, right? Mm-hmm. Which is obviously not ideal for throughput. But now, because you just have to have a pointer or a reference to the original script that you're referencing, that can, be drastically improved, because a normal transaction on Cardano without a smart contract is much, much smaller than one that does have it. So it's a very exciting and big change, but it's not like this binary 0 to 1 where we don't have smart contracts and then we do. This is more like we have smart contracts and now they have more throughput, right? So it's a different kind of change, but still a nice one. I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah, as you said, in software development, these things used to take time, so it's not always like written in a rock that it's going to happen, like the Ethereum merge, and you see since 2000.
Yeah. So that's the funniest thing, right? Like in the past, Ethereum had smart contracts but no proof of stake, and like they were working from they're still working on trying to get to proof of stake, right? And in the inverse case, Cardano had proof of stake but no smart contracts, right? So they were trying to work to smart. Now Cardano does have smart contracts. It does have proof of stake, and it's kind of interesting. It has like this settlement layer at the bottom, which is where kind of tokens move around, and it has a computation layer above that. And so that's, from what I understand about the direction that Ethereum is heading, Ethereum is kind of heading towards this kind of separation of concerns type paradigm, where tokens move around at a base level and computation happens at a higher level. And it's if you know anything about software development, or like a Unix principle, right? Like do one thing well, don't mix things up, right? It's handy to have like small modular kind of functions that don't mess with too many other things.
Yeah. You can apply even some of the solid principles for software development. They talk about that. Yeah. So can you tell us now? I'm not sure in what projects are you working right now. Are you still developing NFTs? Because as you said, you sold your collection for more than
So
I'm not sure what project are you working on right now.
I have a few things that I'm working on actually. I am working on, during the drop, I wanted to say thank you to everyone else, right, for supporting me. And so I told them that I'm working on another collection, and this will be given away for free to anyone who owns one of these NFTs, because I was just kind of overwhelmed, right? Like I didn't believe that this was going to sell out, and so I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. So I've been working on that for about a year now, which is like the next step in on-chain NFTs. For me, the thing that is more close to being released, a separate project, is if you're at all familiar with the NFT space, there's like a lot of FOMO and pump and dump and all these kind of scams going on, right? So one principle of mine, or that I'm very interested in pursuing, is the idea of signal to noise. If you're familiar, right, with like a signal being information and noise being some kind of like background emission that makes it harder to hear or perceive the signal. The project that is pretty close to launching is a NFT shorting platform on Cardano, which I think will make it much harder for people to scam other people with pump and dumps. Because, until now, the only way to really make money in NFTs is by buying and holding an NFT that is going up in value. But now, because you'll be able to short NFTs, I think it will put a lot of like negative price pressure on a lot of these shitty NFT collections that don't really have a future, that their creators aren't really interested in. So I'm quite excited to bring that, because I think that it's basically going to be like mowing the lawn or pulling weeds in a garden, right? Right now, even if you release a good NFT collection, it's so hard to be seen and to get coverage on it, because there's just so much crap. And so what I want to do is kind of like clean up the crap.
It's really an amazing idea, and I found that to see it soon. So, because as you said, there's a lot of good and bad designs there of NFTs, and people is.
I mean, I think like 97% of NFTs are crap and should go to zero, right? Like it's very rare that there's anything actually worthwhile. And so to me, as someone who's interested in making like good things in it, I worry, like anytime I tell someone that I make NFTs or I made NFTs, all I get is like, it's bad for the environment, it's a Ponzi, it's a pyramid scam. And like, I feel very like, I'm like, yeah, like a lot of people do that, but that's not what I'm doing. Right. Exactly, but they don't want to hear it. Like they're just, no, it's bad for the environment and you're, it's a Ponzi scheme. And I'm like, well, you're not wrong. Most of them are, but that doesn't mean that, it's kind of the American guns don't kill people, people kill people. Right. Like it's kind of a sad thing, but so I feel like there's something you need to clean up.
That I have. Yeah. It's in the same answer that I have when I just mentioned Bitcoin, and with some other people, they believe that I'm selling, I don't know, a pyramidal scam or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I don't talk to people in real life about crypto, right? Like I told you, one of the appealing things to me about coming to Portugal is there's other people in crypto. I don't like onboarding people to crypto because one, it's so volatile, right? And like, I don't want to be responsible if one of my friends loses their life savings. And two, it's just, I don't want to be bogged down in those conversations. So here, the difference is there's enough people that are already interested in crypto that I can talk to them about it. And no one is really like, it's a very different conversation to talk about like what you're doing in crypto than trying to convince someone who doesn't want to be or has no interest in crypto why they should be interested in crypto. Right. Like to me, like, I don't like marketing. I don't like convincing people. Like if I was a restaurant person, I wouldn't want to be out on the street trying to get people to come to my restaurant. Right. I just want to cook. And if people like my food, they eat it. And so I'm not really about salesmanship or that kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And just to clarify, everything that we are mentioning in this podcast is not financial advice. So I have the jingle at the end of the podcast in Spanish, but it's really important to say it in English right now. Yeah. So, exactly. Well, I just want to thank you because this is nearly the end of the podcast, because as you said, you have other appointments. But then, I just want to know, and just you can let us know where people can find you or where people can find your NFTs.
Yeah. So probably at unsigned_ALGO for algo. Is the Twitter account.
You can see my screen right now. It's this one, no? This is the Twitter account.
That's the main Twitter account for the project. And if you see that by Monad_Alexander, that's my personal account, which is mostly just tweets about Cardano and wearing pants on Zoom calls. But I'd say like, maybe especially for your audience, if you guys are mostly Bitcoiners, like I'm not a Cardano zealot. I'm a crypto maxi, and I happen to believe that Cardano is like one of the better or best cryptos. But if something else comes along in the future, I'm very happy to switch to something else if Cardano kind of loses its way or something else is more innovative and has like a better strategy. So I think there are a lot of parallels between Cardano and Bitcoin. I don't know if you know like a EUTXO, where one of the reasons Cardano took so long, right, is like it's very hard to implement smart contracts in a UTXO based system. And so Ethereum kind of took this shortcut of like global account state where a script address has a balance, right? But I think one of the beautiful things about Bitcoin is the UTXO system. And so it took a long time for Cardano to release it, but now it's finally out. And I'm excited to build on that kind of legacy of what Satoshi Nakamoto and co. kind of brought to Bitcoin. And now I feel like a kind of grandchild or child of that idea is Cardano.
Yeah. So thank you, Alexander. So as you can see, everyone on the screen, the people who is watching this video on YouTube, or the people who is listening to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you can follow Alexander on his Twitter account, that is Nomad _Alexander, and the Twitter account of his project is unsignet_algo. So here you can find all the
or just unsigs.com for the website, right? Is an easier way to, if you just want to see some of these things.
Yeah, you have it there. It's this website. Yeah. So here you can find.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Alexander. I hope to see you soon. So let me know.
Yeah, come back to Lisbon
next time.
I'll check out some Gaudi buildings next time. So thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Alexander. So I hope to see you soon. And for everyone who is listening to this podcast, thank you for joining us. This is the second episode in English. And so hope to see you soon in the next episode. Bye.
Cheers.
If you have enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Telegram, where we post all our new episodes and news about cryptos. The information provided on this podcast does not constitute investment advice, financial advice, trading advice, or any other sort of advice, and you should not treat any of the episode's content as such. Before investing in cryptos, perform your own research.